There are 5 obstacles to effective reading. Number 1, subvocalization. Do you ever read something and you hear that inner voice reading along with you? That means your reading speed is limited to your talking speed and not your thinking speed. That's why you can listen to a podcast or an audiobook at 1.5 or 2x. Now, one thing that can help with a lot of these obstacles is usually we'll actually read about 25 to 50% faster.
Jim Kwik. Jim is a world-renowned brain coach and expert in accelerated learning and memory improvement. But Jim's story didn't start as most would imagine.
She pointed to me from the whole class and said, "Leave that kid alone. That's the boy with the broken brain." I grew up with a traumatic brain injury. When I was 5 years old, I had an unfortunate accident in kindergarten. I lost my balance, hit my head. But the end result of that was I had learning difficulties.
He helps millions unlock their brain's potential through practical techniques that boost focus, retention, and mental performance.
Is it true that you can only memorize like 250 names?
They say that the average person can keep track of about 150 people. I think one of the best ways of improving your memory is what I call the 6-second syndrome. You read something, you learn something, you get someone's name, you have 6 seconds to do something with it. Otherwise, it's just gone.
So what would you say, how can people start to understand that concept? Like, how can we learn?
Think about an area where you do feel stuck, right? You're stuck in the box. Maybe it's your reading speed, maybe it's your focus, maybe it's your happiness, maybe it's your health. So 3 forces that contain that box are the same 3 forces that will liberate you out, and just really simple 3 M's.
Okay, well, I am so excited. So today we are going to be speaking with my friend and brain expert, Jim Kwik. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
I've been looking forward to this. Thanks for having me.
So I feel like this has been a long time coming, but I'm so excited to talk about. I mean, we were just chatting before the podcast that you really have this incredible niche, and I've actually gotten the great opportunity to go around some conferences. It's the biohacking conference in Austin. And I just have seen literally like hundreds or thousands of people come up to you and thank you for, just changing their life with learning and speed reading and memory. And I'm excited to get into all of it today. So to start, I would love you just tell the audience, like, how did you get into this? It's so interesting.
Thank you. My inspiration really was my desperation. Through struggles I find strengths. Through adversity, you get an advantage. With challenge comes change. And so when people see me at these events, you mentioned, if there's time, I'll do a demonstration. We'll pass around a microphone and people introduce themselves, and I'll memorize their names or something like that. Kind of useful skill in life. Remembering names and faces. But I always tell people I don't do this to impress you. I really just to express to you what's possible. Because the truth is, every single one of your listeners and viewers, they could do that too, regardless of their age or their background, their education level, their financial situation, their gender, history, IQ. It's just, we weren't taught, right? School taught us what to learn, like math, history, science, but there's not a lot of class on how to learn. I always found that interesting. Like, there's no class on how to concentrate or how to focus or how to remember, even how to study. And so, yeah, and I know it's possible because as you know, I grew up with a traumatic brain injury. When I was 5 years old, I had an unfortunate, or maybe a fortunate accident in kindergarten. I was on a chair and I lost my balance, hit my head on the windowsill, and then it ricocheted into the radiator and rushed to the hospital. And but the end result of that was I was just, I had learning difficulties. I would have migraines every day when I was 5. I just thought it was like normal. For poor focus, poor memory. That was a slow processor. And my name is really Kwik. It's not like a stage name, but it's my father's name, my grandfather's name, but people call me slow. I mean, kids could be pretty, kind of ruthless.
Yeah.
So I'd be teased a lot. Took me 3 years longer to learn how to read, 3.5 years. That was a struggle. Really affected my self-esteem, my self-confidence, my self-worth. I don't know if anyone listening has had the experience of being called stupid, or just, my mom became a special education teacher in the New York public school system to help me with my learning challenges. When I was 9 years old, this is how I got this moniker. I was slowing down the class, and the teacher, you could tell she wanted to help me, so she kept on repeating the lessons, but the other kids caught on, teased me even more because I was slow. And the teacher came to my defense one day, and she pointed to me from the whole class and said, "Leave that kid alone. That's the boy with the broken brain."
Wow.
That's what I was known as in school, to other people, but probably more profound was that's how I saw myself.
Yeah.
So every single time I wasn't big for sports, right? Because of my TBI, I had very poor coordination and balance. I would always say, because I had the broken brain, right? Because kids are always trying to search for meaning, like why? Where every time I did badly in school, which was all the time, I would say, oh, because I had the broken brain.
Yeah.
And so my parents immigrated here to the US. They didn't come with anything. My dad was 13, didn't speak the language. We lived in the back of a laundromat that my mom worked at. Since my parents were always working to make ends meet, my grandmother raised me at that age. But when I started to have my challenges, she started showing early signs of dementia. And I know you work with a number of people in this space. Brain aging challenges it's hard to describe it for someone who hasn't experienced a loved one going through it. I think we have to I want to say a shout out to all the caregivers out there that,
Yeah.
because it is mentally, emotionally, physically, financially. My grandmother would call me by my father's name, and I was very confusing when I was a kid. Or, she would repeat something she just said 30 seconds ago.
Yeah.
And, she passed of Alzheimer's. So it's something that it kind of put me on a path, with my grandmother, with her brain. I wanted to make in my, broken brain, I wanted to make it better. And because I was a very slow learner, I wanted to learn how to learn faster. And, we donated all the proceeds to my book, Limitless, to Alzheimer's research for women. Women are twice as likely, as you know, experience Alzheimer's than men. Yet
Yeah.
the research is done on men and treatments on men. And also to build schools for girls. We built schools in Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya. So education and brain health is a big deal. But when I was 18, I learned some skills and I learned how to compensate. And, my grades improved. And with that, my self-esteem also. The story I mentioned to you was that why I'm here with you today is I felt a moral obligation to share like what I learned with other people who are struggling, because kind of like shame on us if we know something that could help people that are suffering and struggling and we don't support them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I started to tutor, and one of my very first students, she was a college freshman. She read 30 books in 30 days, not skim or scan. She really read them. And I wanted to know not how, I taught her how, but I wanted to know why. I'm always very curious and you probably have insight. I love to talk to you on my podcast about this, but like what motivates people to follow through? Like people know what to do, but they don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But she read it, and she read those books, and I found out her mother was dying of terminal cancer, was only given 2 months to live. And the books she was reading were books to save her mom's life.
Wow.
And 6 months later, I had a call from this young lady. She's crying and crying profusely, but when she stops, she tells me that her mom not only survived, but is really getting better.
Wow.
Doctors don't know how or why. The doctors were calling it a miracle, but her mother attributed 100% to the great advice she got from her daughter, who learned it from all these books. And in that moment, I realized that if knowledge is power, then learning is our superpower. It's a superpower we all have. And the other thing I learned was my mission, my dharma. And I'm in my 50s. I've been doing this 33 straight years, lecturing and writing and courses and books. Yeah, I just a podcast. I just love sharing with people what's possible.
Amazing backstory. I mean, you really that's literally the definition of taking something that was unfortunate that happened and just turning it into the most incredible thing. And now you're just impacting. I mean, how many people have gone through your program, do you think?
A lot.
So it has to be so many because
There are. We have to. It has to be north of 1 million students. I also travel a lot, so I can be on 3 continents in 1 week. We've trained a lot of the educators. They use a lot of our systems in the top schools in the world, from Finland to South Korea. So, we work with people of all ages and stages, right? Children who are just kind of getting started to aging seniors to, professionals and, athletes and actors, Who doesn't want to have more focus? Who doesn't want to be able to read and understand better? Who doesn't want to be able to remember client information or product information or give speeches without notes or learn languages or, it's, yeah, I think it's, I feel like our mission is to build a world full of like limitless learners where there's no borders or boundaries of what's possible.
I love that. So starting at the basics, you brought up a great point that we were never taught to learn. So what would you say, how can people start to understand that concept? Like, how can we learn?
So there's a whole science and an art called meta learning. It's the science of learning how to learn. Meta, like metamorphosis or metacognition is thinking about your own thinking. Meta learning is learning how to learn. I feel like the faster we learn, the faster we could earn. Because everyone listening, it's not like it was thousands of years ago where it was just we're compensated based on our brute strength. Today now it's more our ideas, our brain strength, right? Not so much our muscle power, but more our mind power. And knowledge today is not only power; it's profit. And I don't mean just financial. That's kind of obvious, but I mean like all the treasures of your life. Like this incident where this young lady who read 30 books in 30 days and helped her mom with her health, or you could do that for your relationship. You could do that. There's a book out there that pretty much could solve a problem, any problem that we're dealing with. And if somebody has decades of experience, they put into a book and you can sit down and read that book in a few days. You could download decades into days, which is an incredible advantage. I'm sure a lot of people listening, they had the experience of buying books and it just sits on your shelf unread. And it's tough, right? It becomes shelf help, not real self-help. So, there's 3 parts to becoming more limitless as a learner or as an entrepreneur, as a parent. I call it the limitless model. So if imagine somebody feels stuck, right? Which is like limitless is not about being perfect. It's just about advancing. It's about progressing beyond what you're currently demonstrating or beyond what you believe is possible. But if you feel stuck in a box, that box by definition is 3-dimensional. So the 3 forces that keep you in that box. So maybe you listening could make it practical to you, because I want this to be extreme, like a masterclass for you, and you share it absolutely and take a lot of notes. Think about an area where you do feel stuck or limited. Maybe it's your reading speed, maybe it's your focus, maybe it's your happiness, maybe it's your health, your energy level, your memory, right? You're stuck in that box. So 3 forces that contain that box are the same 3 forces that will liberate you out, and just really simple 3 M's. And this is how you become more of a limitless learner. The last M are the methods, which we could go over, like the tactical things to read faster or to remember more. And Limitless, originally my book was all tactical. And before I sent it to the publisher, I asked myself a question. I was like, will everyone reading this get the results they're hoping for? And the answer was no. Because again, a lot of common sense is not common practice. And so we have to address the 2 first M's, and the first M is your mindset. So in order to learn faster, there's a mindset that correlates with that, right? Because all behavior is belief driven.
Yeah.
Right. It's if you feel like your identity is that you're not smart, that you're dumb or stupid or you're too old or whatever, then we're still going to be contained in that box, right? Our brains are this incredible supercomputer. Our self-talk, our beliefs are like the program it will run. So if you're saying to yourself, I'm not good at remembering names, we just won't remember the name of the next person we meet, right? Because we were programming our computer not to.
It's kind of like that with health too. I always say, if you identify like as a fit person, you're going to do things that fit people do. If you think that you're like, just lazy or you can never be fit, it's harsh. You're never going to do what it takes to be that. But if in your heart, you're like, I'm identifying and I'm saying I'm healthy and I'm fit, then you're obviously going to do things that type of person would do.
Yeah. And then those things create results, and that's evidence that you are this identity, the person you say that you are. Right.
Yeah.
So it's a positive reinforcing loop. People truly understood how powerful their mind is. They wouldn't say or think something they didn't want to be true. And that's not to say you have a negative thought and ruins your life any more than eating a donut once will ruin your life. But if you eat a donut 20 times a day, like people have these negative thoughts every single day, everyone would know it's undeniable. There'll be a consequence.
Yeah.
It's hard to create a positive life with a negative mind. So if you find yourself saying, I'm not a great learner, I don't have a great memory, just you get out a little, be aware, right? Self-awareness is a starting point. Just like with all the diagnostic assessments and tests that you take, you self-aware, know thyself, right? I think part of it is having the curiosity to know yourself, which a lot of people don't do, but I think, and I can't wait to talk to you on my podcast to talk about, how you build self-awareness and the kind of assessments and diagnostic tools that you lean into. But also once you have the curiosity to know yourself, having the courage to be yourself too. Because a lot of people do the assessments, the diagnostics, they do the therapy, the journaling, but they know who they are, what they believe, what they stand for, their values, but they're not being that person. So the curiosity to know yourself and the courage to be yourself I think is the other part. But yeah.
I love
So
this little exercise that I was told to do once, and it's essentially, what are the top 3 important things? Most people would say something like family, health, and maybe like career or something, right? But then if you really compare how you're living, so if family is your top priority, how much time are you actually spending with your family? If health is your second priority, how much time are you actually investing in your health, right? And there's often, probably more often than not, a significant mismatch between what people believe are their top priorities and what their actual top priorities are. So I always try to think about that for myself. Am I living what I say is my top priorities?
And that's a good point too, because our calendars, is one of the most powerful productivity performance tools that we have. And you're right. Just looking at it, is your calendar reflecting what's most important, your values in your life, the time and energy and focus you're putting into something. Not that everything has to be equally balanced, right? But there has to be some kind of harmony with things, right? Balance denotes equal weight. Like you're on a balance beam, and which could feel stressful. Everyone wants like work-life balance, but I don't necessarily want to spend an equal amount of time working as I do necessarily working out. Or maybe I do. I don't really know yet. But it's not equal. But like in a symphony, not every person is playing an equal amount of time, but there's an art to it, right? And they create harmony. And so I really strive for more of an harmony. But I do believe the most important thing, it's not so much about time management, but it's more your priority management. It's your mind management. Right. The most important thing is to keep the most important things, the most important things.
Yeah.
Right. So many of us put energy and effort into things that aren't giving us what we desire. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, who am I to say what people should be necessarily focusing on and prioritizing? But if people are complaining about something and they're doing things to take them away from that, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Right. Because complaining and excuses, it just wastes a lot of energy and time, and that could be used towards something more productive. So we can't be upset by in health, business, anything. We can't be upset by the results we didn't get from the work we didn't do. Right.
Yeah.
So I would start with mindset, getting that right, and then the last M is your motivation. And I think to be a motivated learner, I think it's just like I'm like you, I don't want to go to sleep as the same person I was the day before.
Yeah.
Right. You want to be stronger than yesterday. You want to be smarter than yesterday, wiser than yesterday. And so I would say for motivation, because somebody can have limitless mindset and limitless methods to read, to learn, to whatever, to make money, to advertise, whatever. But if they're not motivated to get out of that box, then they're still just stuck in that box. Yeah. So I just created a 3-step formula to motivate yourself or motivate somebody else to be healthy, or motivate them to buy, or motivate your kids to clean their room. And it's just the letters P times E times S3. PES3. And just very simple. If people think about something they've heard on this podcast that they know they should do, but they haven't yet done it, right? Let's say it's exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Working out, which is amazing, right? And all the research talked about that, and brain cognitive function. But let's say the P stands for purpose. And I just want to remind somebody again, it's very simple, but I think it's the simple things that we just don't do. Maybe because we just think it's so simple. Everybody wants the new sexy, thing. the new trendy thing. But I feel like without reasons, you won't get the results. Even remembering names, right? If people don't have a reason to remember someone's name, they're not going to remember it. Even asking yourself, why do I want to remember a person's name, helps you to just attune and connect with, that emotion, right? Maybe to show the person respect. Maybe it's or maybe you forget what you read. You read a page of your book, get to the end and forgot what you just read. But do you have a reason for reading that in the first place? Right. And I think it has to be emotional. I think things have to go from your head to your heart, then they go to your hands. You could set KPIs or vision, affirmations, whatever goals in your head, but if you're not acting consistently with your hands, that's the only evidence that you're motivated. You consistently act, right? Check in with the second H, which is your heart, right? The symbol of emotions. And, we're not logical, but we are biological. You and I have TED Talks about, neurotransmitter, dopamine, and oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. And we're just neurochemical soup, and we just tend to not be motivated unless we feel something. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I saw somebody in my neighborhood, and at a distance, and I kind of recognized them, but I didn't know who it was, which is really embarrassing as a memory coach, right?
Also surprising. I feel like you remember everything.
A lot. But when he came up to me and he said, he opened up his mouth, I knew exactly who he was because I recognized his voice, but I didn't recognize what he looked like because he looked amazing when I saw him that day. He looked younger and fitter and had this glow. He lost all this weight. I mean, this person, as long as I've known him, is the opposite of that. The most unhealthy person you can imagine.
Okay.
If an image comes into your mind. And he had all the vices, right? The drinking, the smoking and everything. And he took pride in that too. You know what I mean? It was this identity. Like and just like when people take pride in being busy, right? I mean, where it's a badge of honor, as opposed to like a sign that maybe they're not working as smart as they potentially could. But I asked, I believe genius leaves clues. When somebody has exhibited a level of success, there are things that they're doing, right? There's certain patterns. There's always a method behind what looks like magic. Even when I memorize 100 names or numbers or random words, there's a methodology behind it,
Yeah.
right? Like you are as healthy as you are with your biological age because it's not magic. It's work, and you're doing something that other people aren't doing, right?
Yeah.
But they might not see it, so they might just say, "Oh, you have just great genetics or whatever," right? And so I would say for purpose, this gentleman, when I asked him, what he's doing, he's telling me all these things he's doing. His diet, and he quit smoking, and he's doing these biohack. And I was like, well, we've been telling you to do this for years. Our friends. And he was like, yeah, but, and this is the story and the point. He was on a business trip, he tells me, and he came home and his daughter was crying hysterically. And he finds out that she had a nightmare that he died, that her father died, and wasn't there for him, and so on. And that gave him purpose. So intellectually, we know we should read more or move more or do, hyperbaric chamber or do peptides, whatever. But if we don't feel it, and we're not going to do it. So it's one thing to know it here in your head, but not in your heart. So I allow you to feel. But somebody can have limitless purpose and still not be motivated because they need the E, P times E, which is energy, right? If you're exhausted, you're not going to be motivated. We have a newborn. Not getting a lot of sleep, it does definitely, I have to admit, affects my motivation to work out.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're exhausted, you're just going to be stalled. And so I just want to remind everybody listening that you don't have energy, you do it. I think a big principle of our work is taking nouns and getting in the habit of turning them into verbs, because it's kind of like we're in this, I think part of the work we do is about helping people transcend. And if you think about the word transcend, I'm always looking at word origins. Transcend, you're ending the trance. Like this mass hypnosis through marketing or media that we're broken, we're not enough, we need to be fixed or whatever. And it's not just the external, we're also self-hypnosis by our words. And when we say, I don't have focus, I don't have a great memory, I don't have energy, I don't have motivation, these aren't things you have. Nouns, they're verbs. You don't have energy, you generate energy, right? There's certain things you can do to create more energy. You don't have focus, you do focus. There's a process for focusing yourself. Just like you don't even have a memory, you actually do it. There's a 3-stage process of encoding, storing, and retrieving, right? And once you make it a verb, the best thing about it is you get your agency back, right? You have something that you could actually do. And so, all the things we could talk about in terms of optimizing energy, optimizing your sleep, your diet, and so on. And then finally, somebody can have limitless purpose and energy and still not be motivated to get out of their box that they're stuck in, because they need S3, which just stands for small, simple steps. Because I realize, that people are motivated either because the P is they don't have purpose or they don't feel it, or they lack energy, the vitality to do that thing, or they do it, they're stalled and not motivated because this thing is too big, it's too confusing, or it's too overwhelming, right? It's too abstract. So a small, simple step is breaking it down into something where you can't fail. So, and you've heard these kind of anecdotes. So if you want to work out, you're not getting to the gym for an hour, maybe that's too big of a jump from your normal routine. Small, simple step, putting on your running shoes, right? If you're not reading, people see me online, we're connected on social media, you see me with Oprah or Elon or whoever. People always ask how we bonded. Are we connected? We bonded over books, right? You read to succeed. Leaders are readers. But if you're not reading, let's say 10 pages a day, maybe that's too big. Opening up a book is a small, simple step. Reading one line, right? We had a biological dentist talk about oral health and brain health. And beyond just brushing, is oil pulling, tongue scraping, flossing. And I was like, well, how do you get kids to floss? Well, because that maybe it's too big. So a small, simple step, getting the floss one tooth. Then nobody's going to stop at one, right?
Yeah.
And so, and how you find your S3 if you're stalled in that area, this is a question I ask myself many times a day. I ask myself exactly word for word, what is the tiniest action I could take right now that will give me progress towards this goal where I can't fail? What is the tiniest action I can take now, operative or now, that gives me progress towards this end goal where I just can't fail? And little by little, a little becomes a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel like in order to become more of a limitless learner, to learn anything faster, the framework, the lens you look at is where are you stuck? Is it your mindset that's holding you in this box? That you don't believe it's possible, that you don't believe you deserve it, that you don't believe you're capable. Maybe somebody else could do it, but you're not capable of it. Because then you can intervene there. There's self-hypnosis, there's tapping, right? EFT, there's, cognitive behavioral therapy, there's EMDR, there's all kinds of ways to rewire your thoughts, right? Or maybe that's fine and you just need to up your motivation. Or maybe using old methods of reading. Like think about the last time reading is a skill, but when's the last time most people took a class called reading? How old were you?
Yeah. And I can't even recall.
Right. Like 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And so the difficulty in demand has increased a lot, but how we learn it is the same. So that growing gap creates health conditions like information anxiety, higher blood pressure, compression of leisure time, more sleeplessness. People are just drowning in information. I think people are starving for the ways to understand that information and apply that information also. They're just knowing something that doesn't make your life any better. So yeah, that's the framework I look at when I'm coaching somebody. I see where the limitation is, and then we just help them go through a process of unlimiting that. And it can be applied towards focus, memory, reading abilities, thinking, problem solving. Everything can be breakdown into those 3 areas.
So it would be applicable for memory, even if, the same exact process as it would be for learning.
Yeah.
Is that true?
It is. I mean, for a lot of people at this event, they come to me and say they have a horrible memory. How do you improve your memory? And I always say, well, what area specifically? Because it's like somebody coming to a fitness coach and saying, I want to be better at sports. Well, what sport specific? Right.
Yeah.
Because the protocol would be, there's certain universals certainly, but then there's certain training protocols and practices and strategies to get success in that area. But some of the principles for it, I always talk about, let's say remembering names.
Mhm.
That's probably the biggest complaint most people have. I think it's very important to remember names in life and in business, right? This whole idea that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? Like, and because what's the message we send to somebody when we forget their name? That they don't matter, that we don't care. And so it doesn't matter what we say after that. Right?
And may I ask a question? Is it true that you can only memorize like 250 names or something? Like, is there a limit? I'm assuming you're going to say no.
No,
Okay.
there isn't. I mean, there's a certain amount we could hold, and that they say that the average person could keep track of about 150 people.
Okay, it was 100.
Yeah, it was like 150. I mean, yeah, you shoot high, so that's good. No, but there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's more a trained memory and an untrained memory. Like, whether, I could take a shuffle deck of cards and just, memorize the order or whatever it happens to be. There's no known limit. Like, people can memorize pi at 100,000 digits. They could do, like, they can learn so much. There's really a known upward limit of that. And I would say that just even remembering names, there are a few ideas. I always say at the basics, just remember mom, MOM. The M is motivation. Ask yourself why. Because again, you don't remember all names, but most people don't forget all names either. And if genius leaves clues, like what principle is being employed when you are successful at it, there's probably motivation. Like that person could be good for your business, or you're attracted to that person. There's some kind of emotion that's there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so the idea here is to be consciously aware, self-awareness, and then lean into that and utilize that principle. Ask yourself why, right? Start with why, another great book by Simon Sinek. And then the O in mom, this is obvious, it's observation. A lot of people blame their retention, but it's really more a matter of attention. Because even you're meeting somebody, are they truly present and focused? Or are they looking over your shoulder? Or are you thinking about what you're going to say, right? Are you distracted in some way? You're trying to multitask. And so I would say, as a brain exercise, you could write down the word or imagine the word listen. And then if you could scramble it in your head, it spells another word, perfect. It spells the word silent, right? I mean, you have this incredible supercomputer of a brain, right? 86 billion neurons, has upwards of 10,000. Each one has upwards of 10,000 synapses. So if you extrapolate that, there are more connections than there are in the known stars in the known universe. You can remember a name, right? But are we paying attention? And then the last M in mom are the methods. So something simple, like people could use when you're at your next event, or you're at a wedding, or you're at some kind of social gathering. Just all I say is just suave. I use a lot of acronyms as shorthands. If people can't take notes and they're driving or they're working out. Because, I think one of the best ways to improve your memory is through retrieval practice. At the end of this episode, test yourself, see if you remember what MOM stands for, or what the 3 M's are in the Limitless model, or, swap. So you say the name, they introduce themselves, you repeat the name. The U is you use it. Very simple. 3 or 4 times in the conversation. Don't abuse it, but just use it intelligently. The A is great when you meet somebody who has an unusual name, maybe a name that you haven't heard before. You could ask about it. That's what the A stands for. What can you ask? Where's it from? How do you spell it? Who are you named after? What is it? What does it mean? Right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So name is the sweetest sound to a person's ears. And I think most people are flattered, and you're just making more neuro associations. It gets more sticky, the name. And then finally the V and the E. The V is visualize. And this is kind of childlike. I mean, you think about the fastest learners, children. Children, I don't know if kids make fun of your name growing up at all, but a lot of kids, they make fun of names, and that's how they kind of learn and encode it. I certainly had my, Nestle Quick or whatever, growing up. But V is visualize. We tend to remember what we see. Like our visual cortex takes up more real estate than the other modalities. And we tend to, like, most people are better faces than they are with names, right? You go to someone and say, I remember your face, but I forgot your name.
Yeah.
You don't go to someone and say the opposite. You don't go say, hey, I remember your name, but I forgot your face. But if you tend to remember what you see, you try seeing what you want to remember. So The first name is Matt. For a split second, imagine you're using their tie as a doormat. It's so silly, but there's some emotion that's there. So there's something you can imagine that makes it sticky. Someone's name's Carol. They're Christmas caroling, and Mary is carrying 2 lambs or getting married, or David, I use a slingshot for David and Goliath, just right on their nose. You're doing this in the privacy of your own mind. You're not sharing this with the other person. But it's to overcome what I call the 6-second syndrome. You read something, you learn something, you get someone's name, you have 6 seconds to do something with it. Otherwise, it's just gone. And even when it doesn't work, it still works because it makes you focus on the person and the name, right? And then it's a means to an end. Once you know the person's name is Matt or microphone, Mike from microphone, and the pictures disappear. And then because you've transferred it more from your short-term to your long-term memory, right? It's just kind of a shortcut to do it. So you don't have to repeat it 100 times. You know how some people they forget a name, they go through the alphabet. You ever do this? That doesn't start with an A, doesn't start with a B. They get really nervous when they get to like W, that many letters after. But sometimes you think about it and they say F, it's Fred, right? It just reminds you. But imagine having a picture that sounds like it or reminds you. And then the E in Swab is end. Always end the conversation, saying goodbye, using their name. Just think about the power. You could walk into a room, meet 15 strangers, and leave saying goodbye to every single one of them by name. I mean, who are they all going to remember? Yeah. And that's a standout skill. So, the idea of being what we put out there in podcasts and other things and YouTube videos is just these kind of like these quick tips, things that don't take a lot of time or practice, but can give you a big return, right? And there's so many other ways of applying that towards learning.
I love that. I found, something interesting about myself is like, I am kind of like a one-track person a little bit. Like I'll have multiple tracks, but my husband, for example, has so many varied interests. Like if you log into his YouTube, it's all over the place. Like it's like, medieval Roman time over there, and then it's like an influencer thing over here, and then health. Mine, like everything in my life is just like one thing, right? It's like health, pretty much.
Right.
I retain health information, I think, really pretty well. I can hear it once and then remember. I think it's because I'm obsessed with it, right? But other things, like things that I don't care about as much, like, which is a whole bunch of things, I feel like it just goes in and I let it go out. I don't even want it to stay. Is that weird?
Yeah, and you can learn, let's say it's health, so well because you have a mindset around health. Like a mindset is your set of assumptions and attitudes you have about something, right? So somebody's like, think about money. If somebody, their assumptions about money is you have to hurt people to make money, or their attitude is like money is the root of all evil, right? They're going to still be stuck in that box because they're not even going to use the methods because their mindset is keeping them contained, right? But you must have very, amazing ideas, beliefs around health, what it is. And also your identity, because that's part of your mindset is who you are. When you see yourself as, right, if somebody thinks of themselves as old or decrepit or just, unhealthy or sick, then that obviously affects, them. It's just like even take anything in the health area, like placebos or nocebos. It's this power of a belief, right? And then also your motivation is there also. You have a big purpose. And energy, and you have great methods, right? So when you unlock all 3 M's, you have momentum, right? And then it becomes self-reinforcing because you start feeling better, looking better, and you just want to stay on, like nothing tastes as good as like being healthy and energized and fit feels. It just doesn't.
I agree with you. But I think unfortunately there's a lot of people that disagree with that because there's the state of our health, these days, and it's wild. But yeah, so because I do, as I progress in life, I want to have other interests, and I've started to, I have a lot of friends in different areas now. Like one of my best friends is an expert in AI. So I'm like trying to learn that too, but I have to be really conscious. And I guess where it goes back to the motivation and, having feelings towards it, I need to be passionate about learning that thing or else it's just going to like fall out of my brain.
And I think connecting, checking in and doing an assessment in terms of what your mindset is about AI the importance of it, and that it's even worth your time and energy and effort,
Mhm.
right? The purpose in terms of the rewards that will come and allowing yourself to feel the benefits of learning that thing. But there's certainly people that are more generalist, like to learn a little bit about everything. And then there's certain people that they like to specialize, in one thing. And none that, either one is really great. It's personal preference. Um, but yeah, like you could build that curiosity, that excitement around any content. Because you want to take ownership of it, right? Like I'm at conferences all the time because I'm always speaking. I'm like waiting for the next person to speak, and I remember one time this person speaking in front of me was just putting everyone to sleep. Like I was looking around, 1,000 people were dozing off at the same time,
Um,
and I could have been like, okay, I'm at the effect, and I could just make an excuse and fall asleep, or I could be like curious. I could be like, wow, this is really strange. I'm so fascinated. How is this one person putting 1,000 people to sleep at the same exact time? Like, how is he doing that? And then all of a sudden I get engaged and I get curious because there's agency, right? This is the whole idea behind whether you identify as a thermometer or a thermostat, right? A thermometer, its only function is to react.
yeah.
Whatever the environment's giving, it just reacts. Um, and sometimes as human beings, we react. We react to the news or to politics or how people treat us, or the weather. I remember and I kept myself reacting too. My son and I, he's only 2 years old. We go for these walks, after dinner. But one day it was raining and I caught myself. I told him like, oh, we can't go for a walk because it's really a bad day outside. You And I was sad about it. And I realized what I was teaching him was like, okay, your emotions and your state is dependent on the weather, right? That's so silly association. Um, but a thermostat doesn't react to the environment. A thermostat, it knows the temperature, so it gauges. So they know what's going on. But then what does it do? You set it, it sets a temperature, and then the environment reacts to you, right? And as human beings, we set goals. We set a standard, right? You
Mhm.
have higher standards for your health than most people that you
Mhm.
know, right? And we always get our standards. We never get what we should do, right? Or what we want. We always get like what we must have,
Yeah.
and that's a mindset also as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I used to do like all like the gray square posts like for a long time. And yeah, I used to love making posts about standards. I'd be like, like it can't be a negotiable. It has to be a standard. Like, what is your standard? Because you'll only ever raise to that. Raise your standards, and everything else will raise around you too. You know.
Yeah. In your relationships, in your health, your energy, your contribution, your income, everything will meet that. Um, yeah, and I think that's one of the best ways to level up. Is to set higher standards for ourselves in terms of what's acceptable. And what affects that a lot are the people you spend time with, because we often negotiate our standards, our values around the people that make it acceptable for us.
Yeah.
Right? We have these mirror neurons, we have this empathy, and I always tell people watch WATCH. We tend to imitate people's words, do the same language as the people
Mm.
we spend time with. Actions. We tend to behave like the people we spend the most time with. Like whether or not someone works out, if all your friends are working out, you're going to be working out,
Mm.
right? If you're reading, which people are reading all the time, you're more likely to read. The T is thoughts. We tend to have the same thinking patterns as people around us. We tend to that same outlook on problems or business or health. The C is character, our personal values and integrity. People are around people who have, a little bit, their morals are in a different place, tend to accept the same kind of um, moral integrity. And then finally, the H are habits. We tend to have the same habits. If everyone around you smokes, you're more likely to smoke,
Yeah.
right? If everyone, has a habit of, making grass-fed, grass-finished meals or whatever, like fresh farm table, then they're more likely to do that also as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna be fit, hang out with fit people. If you wanna be smarter, hang out with smart people, I mean, I never wanna be, like, the smartest person in the room, like, because that's the fastest way to just, like, continually be bettering yourself, learning more. Okay, I mean, absolutely incredible information. I need to like think about what other things I want to start learning because you'll never learn everything about health, that's for sure. And I'm like so far from that, but I want to start like diversifying, like and have other interests.
Yeah, and I think also when we learn other subjects, we can map it. I think genius is pattern recognition. And there's this book I read years and years ago called The Structure of Scientific Revolution.
Mm,
It's kind of not the most thrilling read, but the idea behind it is that a lot of innovation in fashion or automotive, you name it, usually comes from people outside the industry because it takes somebody from the outside that didn't have the same kind of training in limiting beliefs. They'll look at it fresh from a different perspective and say, why aren't we doing it this way? Kind of like Elon looking at the automotive industry as an example, right? Like
right.
with today's technology, why aren't we creating cars like this as an
Mm,
example? And so, but that means that we're learning other verticals or other subjects that we can map out and apply towards the thing we're most passionate about. It's like, you get excited about nature and think about like, how does nature optimize and
mm,
how would you apply those same kind of principles, for your body or your brain or something like that. But yeah, it's fascinating. I think a lot of it has to do with the questions we ask, even when you're reading, right?
mm,
And you want to read something. I think a lot of people, they might read something and not get a lot out of it because they're not asking enough questions. Like I'm obsessed about certain questions, like when I want to study, like how can I use this,
yeah.
right? When will I use this? How does this relate to what I already know? How do I teach this to other people? And then I get answers all the time, right?
Mm,
Because the brain, it's been my experience that the brain is more of a deletion device, right?
mm,
It's trying to keep information out
got it.
because there's too much stimulus, right? There could be a billion things for us to focus on. But what we decide to let in, through different systems, your reticular activating system, or like in terms of where you're shining the spotlight, a lot of it could be controlled by our thoughts and, ask and you shall receive. A lot of people could ask questions like, how can I use this? Like this, or what can I learn from this? And take these things. And so even when you're reading, you want greater comprehension, asking, I remember I have a younger sister and a long time ago, she would send me postcards and emails with a very specific kind of breed of dog. It was a pug dog, right? And my question was, why does she keep on sending me these pictures of pug dogs? And a funny thing happened. I started seeing pug dogs everywhere. Now she was sending it to me because she's a great marketer and she was seeding a gift that she wanted for her birthday. But I started seeing pug dogs everywhere. I would be, online. Let's say I'm at Air One and the person in front of me is holding a pug dog.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I'd be jogging in my neighborhood and somebody is walking, I swear, 6 pug dogs.
Oh my god.
And my question for everybody was, did these pug dogs magically appear in my, around me? No, they were always there, but I was deleting them, right? It wasn't important. Until I started asking the question about pug dogs, then I see pug dogs everywhere.
Yeah.
And the idea here is if you're reading something, you have questions and you're like, oh, there's a pug dog, there's an answer, there's an answer, there's an
Mm,
answer, there's an answer. So if you want greater comprehension, it would be a smarter reader, be very clear with the question. Like even every chapter for Limitless, I prime people with 3 questions right at the beginning of the chapter so that that could be like charged so they could pull information and look for that, you know. But a lot of people also don't read because they don't understand, but they also don't read because it's a slow process,
yeah.
you know.
Do you make notes when you're reading? So, like in books?
I do. I have a notation system. I think everyone has their own way. Some people like to highlight. Some
Mhm.
people, I would say though, some people go overboard with things like highlighting. You ever have somebody who highlights so much like
Yeah,
the
the
books, like it glows in the dark.
right.
Because the idea, if you make everything important, then literally nothing is important.
Right.
Right. And it's this idea about how much we could actually focus on at a time. But what does help your focus, a quick tip to help everyone read with better focus and greater speed and actually understand more of it, because there are 5 obstacles to effective reading. And effective reading is not only speed, but it's comprehension, right? Traditional speed reading is more been associated with getting the gist of what you read, right? And we train a lot of financial advisors, a lot of attorneys, a lot of medical doctors like you want your medical doctor to get the gist of what she's reading, right?
Yeah.
So one of the ways, so 5 obstacles. Number 1, I would say lack of education, which we already talked about. Most people haven't taken a reading class, not a college literature class, but a reading class since they're a kid,
Yeah.
right? And so upgrade those skills. Number 2, big one, lack of focus. I don't know how many people feel like seen by this, but have you ever read something and then just your mind wanders or you get easily distracted?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people lose focus because it's an obstacle to effective reading, lack of focus. Because a lot of people, if I ask you to read faster, most people would say they would lose comprehension. Now we have students, we have online reading programs, and we have students in every country in the world, and we get a lot of feedback. We find that the faster readers actually have better comprehension
Interesting.
because they have better focus.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. You have this incredible brain. It can handle so much information, but when we read, we feed it one word at, I can't even talk that slow because I'm from New York. But if you and I were to have that conversation going that slow, what would people naturally do? They would tune out.
Yeah.
They would think about other things. They would go back on their phone. They would fall asleep.
Yeah.
Aren't those the same symptoms people have when they read? Their mind wanders. They think about other things. They use reading as a sedative. It puts them to sleep. It's kind of like driving a car. If you're going like in this beautiful neighborhood, going slow, you don't have to focus on driving. You know, you could be drinking coffee, texting, even though you know you shouldn't be doing that, which is a testament to not multitasking because there's been more accidents that way, cognitive switching and such. I use up a lot of energy, make more mistakes. But you'd be singing a song, thinking about the dry cleaning, talking to somebody in the car. You'd be doing 5 things when you're going slow.
Yeah.
But if you're racing a car and you're taking hairpin turns, I mean, you're going down straightaways at 200 plus miles an hour. You're not thinking about the dry cleaning.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not trying to drink coffee. You're not doing anything but focused on what's in front of you, and you're focused on the act of driving. And that same thing with reading. Some people read so slow, and if you don't give your brain the stimulus it needs, it'll seek entertainment elsewhere in the form of distraction.
Yeah.
Right. So you're like starving your mind and then seeking entertainment elsewhere because you're going too slow. It's like riding a bicycle really slow.
Mm.
You're just going to wobble. You're going to fall off.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So lack of focus. And I bring that up because I'll share a couple of tips on how to read faster. But if you believe you read faster, your comprehension will go down. That's your mindset, going back to the M. And you're not going to even use the method, is your belief. And then the third obstacle is subvocalization. And this is a big one. Do you ever read something and you hear yourself, you hear that inner voice reading along with you? Yeah, hopefully it's your own voice. It's not like somebody else's voice reading inside. That's something called subvocalization. Sub, like a submarine, under, vocal, speech. It's your inner speech. And the reason why it's an obstacle is if you have to say all the words in order to understand them, what does that mean? You can only read as fast as you could speak. That means your reading speed is limited to your talking speed and not your thinking speed.
Yeah.
Right. That's why you can listen to a podcast or an audiobook at 1.5 or 2x. And a lot of people through practice can understand it, but nobody can speak that fast.
Yeah.
Now the question becomes, do you have to say the words out loud or inside your head in order to understand them? And the answer is no, right? Because you don't have to say the words New York City to understand what New York City, just like the computer. You don't have to say the word computer in order to understand it. Just like when you're driving, you see a stop sign, nobody says to themselves, stop.
Yeah.
Right? But you understand 100% what that word means. 95% of the words we come to on a regular basis in emails and reports and books are words we've seen thousands of times. And so we know them by sight. There's what they call sight words, and we don't have to pronounce them by sound. And so a big part of, I think, accelerated learning is unlearning bad habits, just like you're unlearning poor health habits.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not even just, and we could talk about choices and how we make these kind of decisions, but it's like unlearning the bad habits. Because back in school, your teacher said, you had to read out loud so they know you're pronouncing it phonetically correct, right? But then the teacher probably said something you heard, like read silently to yourself or read quietly to yourself. And that's where you took that external sound and you internalized it and you associate it in order for me to understand it. I have to hear it, if not out loud, then inside my own mind. And so subvocalization will keep you reading as fast as you could speak. which is only about 250 words per minute. And so you have to reduce that. And then finally, fourth obstacle to effective reading, I'm going through what the challenges are so we can navigate around it.
Yeah.
Regression. A lot of people have this unconscious bad habit of rereading words, back skipping, and they don't even realize they're doing it. But there's just like years ago, they would test ads and they would shine a light into the subject's eyes and see where it reflects on a screen, see where they're what they're looking at, right? Their focal point is, so they know where to put their brand.
Yeah.
Right. And that same technology you could do when people are reading, what they find is their reading is very erratic. It goes forwards and then back, forward and back. Some people even reread lines by accident. And so it's very inefficient. So regression is a lot of waste. Plus, it doesn't even help you anymore because it creates eye strain. And it's like watching a movie. If you want, let's say there's a movie you really want to watch and there's somebody watching with you and they have the remote control and every 30 seconds they're going back, 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 back. You would be annoyed with that person, first of all, but also it would take more time, right? Because you're rewinding it, just like when people are rereading words, and it doesn't even help you understand it better.
Yeah.
Because it just breaks up the momentum of the story or whatever you're consuming. And so regression. And then the fifth obstacle is lack of belief, right? Because I always have to bring that in because I think that a lot of it is our mindset. That, we're still a reader, we're not a good reader, whatever. It keeps them contained. Now, one thing that could help with a lot of these obstacles is using a visual pacer. So a visual pacer is you underlining the words. And you would think like back in school, at least I was taught not to use my finger when I read. Now, with my son, like he naturally is using his finger to help him focus without me teaching him. Now, it's interesting because in school, a lot of us are taught not to do that, or depending on what kind of school, there's like a ruler and, hitting your fingers or giving you, negative feedback off of it. But in actuality, people who use a visual pacer, it could be a pen, a highlighter, a mouse on a computer, or your finger when you underline, will actually read about 25 to 50% faster.
Interesting.
And that's not a small like delta. That's a big growth, 25, 50%. I mean, that's like saving 20 minutes on every hour.
Yeah.
Like we on average, triple people's reading speed in 21 days with our online courses. That means even if you could double your reading speed, most people read about 4 hours a day. Think about all the reading we have to process, right? Research, books, emails, whatever. Save 2 hours a day over the course of a year, or even 1 hour a day over the course of a year is 365 hours.
Yeah.
Like think about what you could apply a few hundred extra hours a year towards.
Yeah.
Or even if it's a 40-hour work week, that's 9 weeks, 2 months of productivity every year you get back on something ubiquitous like reading.
Yeah.
Which is huge. So I'm talking about to enhance people's purpose and motivation. So they do this thing, but just underlining, and if you're doing it on a screen, you're not touching the paper, you're not touching the screen, just right above it, going back and forth. You're not skipping any words. And and I don't expect everyone to believe everything I'm saying. I would say test it. Pick up a book, put a mark in the margin where you're starting it. Time yourself on your phone for 60 seconds. Read normally, how you normally read, without your finger. Count the number of lines you read in 60 seconds. Pick up where you left off. And the only difference is just underline the words. And then do it for 60 seconds. That second numbered lines will be about 25, 50% increase.
Wow.
And you'll have better focus because you're not back skipping. If you're being pulled through the information, you're not going back and rereading words. Plus you have better focus because your eyes are attracted to motion, right? If something ran across the room, nobody would pay attention to us. You'd pay attention because it's evolutionary, right? You have to pay attention to what moves because it's your survival. You're a hunter-gatherer, you're hunting lunch. You could be, a rabbit or a carrot or whatever your diet is.
Yeah.
But the bush next to you moves. You have to look at what moves because number one, it could be lunch, or number two, you could be lunch, right? You have to look at it. So when your finger is going through the page, your eyes are pulling through the information your attention being pulled apart. And the other reason from an interesting neuroscience way is it's how your nervous system is set up. Like your certain senses are very closely linked. Like, have you ever tasted a fresh piece of fruit? Not something that's been sprayed and waxed in a market for 6 months, but something right off the vine, right? Or a farmer's market. Like if you taste a great peach, you're not actually tasting the peach. your tongue's not capable of tasting what a peach tastes like. You're actually smelling the peach. But your sense of smell and taste are so closely linked that your mind can't tell the difference. It can tell the difference when you're sick. If you're congested, food tastes different, right? Just as your sense of smell and taste are closely linked, so is your sense of sight and your sense of touch. So literally when you're using your finger while you read, people will tell me, I feel more in touch with my reading, right? Or like I go to, our little one and say, look at my keys, look at my keys, look at my keys. He or she, our daughter even, like who's very young, reaches out and grabs it. Because in order for them to see it, they have to feel like they have to touch it. Or if you think about it, another way, if someone loses their sense of sight, how do they read? They use Braille, right?
Mhm.
They use their sense of touch. So if you want greater speed, use your finger while you read. If you want greater comprehension, ask more questions. The questions are the answer. And those are just two things that don't take any time, but give you a huge return on your investment for all the time we spend reading something or learning something.
Oh yeah, I love those. What do you think, a quick detour, what do you think with like ChatGPT and, talking to ChatGPT or what do you think that's going to do to like learning and focus and memory? Like,
So I am pro technology. Technology is not just like good or bad. It's really how it's applied, right? Like fire was an early form of technology.
yeah.
It could be used to cook your food or it could burn down your home, right? It's just how it's utilized. I believe your brain is an organ, but I feel like it acts sometimes more like a muscle. It's use it or lose it. So I open Limitless with the four, what I call the kind of these digital, the horsemen of the mental apocalypse, and they're all driven by technology. And they're not caused, but they amplify technology. So and I think people can relate to one or more of these. Number one is digital distraction, and I'll get to AI and how it could actually serve us even better. But digital distraction, right? And you know this, like our devices are just every like, share, comment, cat video, whatever, this dopamine flood is driving us to distraction, right? How do you maintain your focus in a world full of rings and pings and dings and app notifications, social media alerts? It's just getting worse and worse. Number two, digital dementia. And this is a term in healthcare. And it's basically the high reliance on technology to remember things for us. And I think a lot of people struggle with that too. Like, because you have Google or your calendar, it keeps your to-dos and remember stuff for you. And it's convenient. It keeps your to-dos, it keeps your schedules, you remember phone numbers. Like, early on, like a lot of people would have to remember phone numbers. Like if I was to ask your audience, like how many numbers did you use to remember? Like all of them. How many numbers do you know currently? Most people it's, one or two or three.
Yeah.
And that I want to memorize 500 phone numbers, but it should be very concerning. We've lost the ability to remember one, or a PIN number, or a passcode, or a seed phrase, or what hotel room you just checked in, or what number, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I believe two of the most costly words sometimes in our life are I forgot. I forgot to do it. Think about the consequences. I forgot to do it. I forgot to bring it. I got to go back. I forgot that appointment. I forgot that name. I forgot what I was going to say. On the other side, memory is a magnifier. When you can remember the things, everything gets so much easier. So there's digital distraction, digital dementia. I coined it just to alliterate digital deluge, which is the information overload. Technology, Moore's law, the amount of information is doubling at dizzying speeds, but how we consume it hasn't changed. If anything, it's getting weaker. And then finally, the how it relates to AI, I coined this term digital deduction, which is not only is technology remembering things for us, it's thinking for us. And very convenient. But if we're not going through the process and getting the mental workout to solve problems, to think, to be creative, then we get mentally lazy, right? We're not getting the neuroplasticity. We're not getting the mental workout, our cognitive. It's two big declines in cognitive function that I see having students of all ages and stages when people graduate school. Because so many people have a mindset that, okay, my education's over, so my learning's over, right? And when they retire. Because, have you ever seen somebody retire and they aren't working their job and they're not using their mind as much? And unfortunately, like their body is not far behind, once their mind goes static. And that's a challenge. So digital deduction. Now AI, I the updated version of Limitless, we do a whole chapter on how to use AI to enhance your HI, your human intelligence. And for me, AI is not artificial intelligence. It's more functionally, it's always been more augmented intelligence. And augmentation is like a partner. It's a support tool, right?
Mm.
And again, it's just like technology is like a car. If you need to go to 5 blocks away to the bank, you could take a car, and a car is a form of technology, very convenient, but then you didn't get your steps in, right? And so it could be crippling, right? Because if I put my arm in a cast for a year, it wouldn't grow stronger. It wouldn't even stay the same, right? It would atrophy. And same that with the mental atrophy. Just like if somebody's on the 5th floor, their office, their apartment, and elevator is a form of technology, very, very convenient. But then that was a huge opportunity for you to be able to walk up the stairs and build those physical muscles. Same thing with your mental muscles. So for AI, all the principles that we talked about, you could utilize with AI. Like in Limitless, we talk about mind mapping to learn faster, a creative way of using whole brain note taking. And you can go into a chat GPT as an example and say, build a mind map of this. So I can see the relationships between all these ideas. For our podcast, sometimes I don't get the guests if they read a book that it gets lost in the mail or I don't have it. And I don't like to read on screens. I just don't need another excuse to be on a screen. I could go in there and ask them to summarize things for me, right? And that's a faster way of learning something. I could say, hey, I am interviewing this individual, propose 10 amazing questions that are practical, pragmatic, that they haven't been asked before, that my audience would love. And it's not that I use those questions exactly, but it creates a creative augmented partner for me, right? And AI can really, the future of learning is going to be personalized, based on the frequency and the duration and your preferred learning style. So you could have AI quiz you on certain things. So you have that active retrieval. You could do spaced repetition where it could present. You literally, in a lot of the AI programs, could have it scheduled where it pings you and asks you these questions or reminds you of certain things. So yes, you could do spaced review. I talk about memory palaces and how to build a memory palace to learn thousands of bits of information. You can go in there and say, hey, I want to learn something, right? Certain tenets in health or whatever, and say, build a memory palace for me. And it'll go out there and create that for you. So I feel like AI, if it's used right, it could still create massive effect and still keep your brain working at the same time. So you can be mentally fit. Because I just don't want a computer to do everything for me. I just feel like it's a huge advantage that we have access to everything, all the data, right? It has incredible pattern recognition. You could utilize that. But I also want to do my part because I feel like just like if you're physically healthy and fit, if we're hiking outside, you're climbing like a big hill or mountain, you're going to go up to the top with ease because you have technique and you have training and physical fitness. Right. Whereas somebody who doesn't have those things are going to struggle, with the same task. And that's the same thing that people struggle with mentally. Like the things that our students do, it makes it look like it's with so much ease because they have the right technique and they have the right training and mental fitness. So memorizing or learning languages or doing reading, whatever, looks like hard for most people. But if you're more mentally fit, you have a huge advantage.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where things go, like between people solely relying, but like you can't always rely on AI. You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to pull it up in a podcast. So, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of things you can't. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. And when it comes to like these habits, I think it's interesting. There's a quote in Limitless from a French philosopher that I put in there. It says, life is letter C between the letters B and D, where B is birth and D is death and life C is choice. Right? Our lives are the sum total of all the choices we made. And the choices of what we fed ourselves and when we went to bed and who we spent time with and everything, right? And I just want to remind everybody when you're practicing health and wellness and longevity optimization protocols, there are only 4 choices you can make. You either stop something, you start something, you do less of something, or you do more of something. That's literally only 4 choices. Because the 5th choice is do the same thing, which is insanity, right? Doing the same full spectrum results. So stop something, you could stop smoking. Start something, you could start meditation process, or hyperbaric or whatever, do less of something, do less binge watching something, right? And do more of something, do more reading or do more movement, right? And then that's how little things add up to big things. So I'm always like, you have your to-do list, but I think it's important to have a not to-do list. Your non-negotiables. You're not going to eat past a certain time, or you're not going to eat certain foods, or you're not going to be on screens and whatever, right? And I think that's more powerful is what's on your not to-do list. And I also think we should have like a to-learn list. So we're always challenge ourselves with new ideas. And that's how neuroplasticity works, right? The two requirements for neuroplasticity besides sleep is novelty and nutrition. Just like if you want to build muscles, like physical muscles, you have to give it novelty, some kind of stimulus, exercise, and then you have to feed it, proper aminos and protein to build that muscle, nutrition. And same thing with your mental muscles. You need to learn new things, and then you need to be able to feed your brain so that plasticity happens when you sleep. Just like when your muscles grow, they don't grow when you're working out; they grow when you're sleeping, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with neuroplasticity. Most of those connections are reinforced and made when you sleep.
Well, we're getting short on time, but I love that. I know that you have like 10 amazing brain tips. So
Yeah, rapid fire. And these are all common sense, and you probably could go for hours on every single one of these because this is your expertise. 10 keys to a limitless brain, because the stuff we're talking about, how to read faster, remember, that's like software. Like this is what you do. But you also take care of the hardware, which is the brain itself, right? Because you're struggling with brain fog, or you're just not going to get the results. And so in no particular order, 10 things that comes to mind. Number one is a good brain diet. Whole area of neuronutrition. Certain foods are just very neuroprotective and they're very nourishing for the brain. What are your favorites?
fatty fish, so like salmon, the omega-3 is super important. Blueberries, antioxidants, I think are really helpful.
I call them brain berries. I love them.
Yeah, I love blueberries. Um, leafy greens, it's kind of like a Mediterranean diet would be a little brain food diet, right? No processed foods, but definitely focusing on those omegas, so like nice healthy fats, avocado, EVOO, because the brain is mostly fat.
Yeah, the olive oil. Yeah,
Yeah.
avocados, blueberries, all of that are my favorite foods. So good, what you eat matters, especially for your gray matter.
Yeah.
And, I think, your audience is very sophisticated in terms of what they should not be eating, right?
Yeah.
The processed high sugars and everything. Number two, I got this from Dr. Daniel Amen, killing ants, automatic negative thoughts. And it's going about the power of your mindset, right? If you believe you can, believe you can. Either way, you're right. Right? Henry Ford said that. Number three is movement. And I don't just mean like going to the gym 3 times a week, but they say sitting is the new smoking, but just moving throughout the day, your activity level. And I just feel like it's so important to do during brain breaks. Taking a brain break every hour to go out in nature, get some steps in, get some fresh air, hydrate, do the things to kind of disconnect to reconnect, right? But movement, create dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, BDNF, right? Your audience knows all about the brain benefits of movement. Number 4, brain nutrients. So if you're not getting it from food, and I always prefer people get it from their food for cognitive health, for cognitive neuroprotection, right? Certain antioxidants that could protect your brain as you age. But then there's post science out there in the biohacking world on nootropics, and where I'm looking at food as for cognitive health, brain health. And if you're not getting it from the food, like you're not getting the broccoli, then you could supplement with sulforaphane, right? If you're not getting the turmeric, you could supplement with curcumin, right? If you're not getting it from the fish, you could supplement with your omega-3s, your DHAs and everything. But I always prefer people get it like in food personally.
Yeah.
Um,
It's slightly difficult though to get everything from food, unfortunately.
Incredibly.
But there's a test that I really like called the NutriEval, and it will actually measure, nutrient status levels so that you then know, like, okay, what is my omega index? How much do I have? How much do I need? Vitamin C, the B vitamins, because
Vitamin D.
vitamin D. Yeah, so it'll look at all the different nutrients, and that can be really helpful.
Yeah. I want to talk about that on when you're on my podcast. That'd be awesome. Because I don't think a lot of people know how to be able, like the best test in terms of measure, because everyone's bio individual. right? And not everybody also could eat certain foods. They have, their microbiome, certain allergy tests. So in the area of brain nutrients for number 4, it's just what you could supplement with, not just for cognitive health, but for cognitive performance. There's certain ingredients referred to as nootropics, which are substances that actually can enhance performance. So cognitive health and cognitive performance. You're eating for cognitive health and supplementing for cognitive health, but you can also supplement for cognitive performance. So certain substances that can boost focus, could boost mood, could boost mental energy, could boost memory, also as well. We put a whole list of 30 different ones with human studies. People go to brainnutrition.com. And if they don't get the book, we printed it out there so people could download it there. And also things like Crete, right? Like all these, which is one of the most researched substances that not only does have, for your physical activity, but also your mental, your cognitive strength and energy. Number 5, a positive peer group. We talked about that. Who you spend time with is who you become. So you up level that for a better brain. Number 6 is clean environment. I love, where we're at here. Because you know this, like when you have clutter, you have mental clutter, right? Your external world is often a reflection of your internal world. You clean your desk, you put everything in the right file folder on your computer, you have mental clarity. And not just clean environment like that. Like I noticed the air purifiers you have, the water purifiers, the lighting, that this all is for clean, the EMFs, right? That's what I mean about clean environment. That's number 6. Number 7 is sleep. And you could probably offer many, many great principles and practices for better sleep. For me, it's sunlight first thing in the morning. No caffeine for me past, I don't do a lot of caffeine, but not definitely past, I'm sensitive to it. So I can't do it past 12. And going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time. And then temperature and light and all that good stuff. That's number 7. 8, and we're almost done, brain protection. Having had multiple concussions and a TBI, just protecting your brain.
Yeah.
Wearing a helmet, something, avoiding certain sports, right? And you also protect your brain also from, having your phone right by your head, and all the Bluetooth and everything else could be brain protection. And then finally, number 9 and 10. 9 is new learnings, which we already talked about. Always learning every single day. There's a study with these nuns, and it was on the cover of Time magazine. I actually have a copy of it years and years ago. The study wanted to find out in this community, which is, they have a set regimen, so it's easier to be able to test for variables. But they were living long, and they wanted to find out what was the key. And they said half of it was their faith, gratitude, but the other half was they were lifelong learners. They were studying every single day. They're having deep conversations and debates. And because of it, it added years to their life and even life to their years. The study was done. It's called Aging with Grace if people want to look it up. So always be learning. And then finally, stress management. There's a certain level of stress is definitely good, right? This eustress, but the chronic stress will shrink your brain. When you're in fight or flight, it kind of holds you hostage in your brain you're in your survival brain. You're not you can't solve problems. You can't be as creative, use your imagination, your executive functioning. You're just kind of thinking in fight or flight, cortisol and adrenaline. And it's probably not the best place to create the limitless life you desire and that you really deserve. So I go through these 10. I don't think anyone would debate any of them, but I would suggest though, rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. Like, in the past 7 days, how much energy and effort and attention did you put on your diet? And then your thoughts, and then how much movement did you do on a scale of 0 to 10, and these are things you could do anecdotally, or a lot of these things can be measured. You can measure your HRV, your blood sugar. You do all these other things also as well. But, take care of your brain and it'll take care of you. And I swear, you change your brain, you change your life, you change your brain, you could change your whole world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Well, Jim, it's been such a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Can I challenge everyone to do one thing?
Yeah, please.
Wherever you're consuming this right now, I really do believe that learning by itself nothing changes, but you have to take some kind of action. And I think the best way of doing it is to sharing something you learn right away with somebody that you care about. I would challenge everyone to take a screen capture of wherever you're consuming this and tag us both on social media and post it and share one thing that you're going to do because of this conversation to be a better learner or have a better brain. And when you post it, you tag us. I'll send out a bunch of books, to random people. Just thank you for having me on the show. But even more so, you get to share your aha and be accountable, to it, and share with your fans, your followers, your family, your friends. And they get to benefit also as well. So
I love that. And I mean, Jimmy has amazing courses and education, an entire school and community, and an amazing book, supplements. So we'll make sure to link all that in the show note. I hope people can follow you if they don't already.
amazing.
So,
No, thank you for having me. All the links are in our Instagram and then to our free trainings and everything in our podcast. And I would say thank you for having me.
of course, yeah.
Absolutely love you and your show. And I listen to it. And also that remind everyone that there's a version of yourself that's patiently waiting. And the goal is we show up every single day until we're introduced.
I love that. Well, thank you.
Thank you.